but there will be no gloom for those who were in anguish. In the former time he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, but in the latter time he will make glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. You have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you, as with joy at the harvest, as people exult when dividing plunder. For the yoke of their burden and the bar across their shoulders, the rod of the oppressor you have broken, is on the day of Midian. For all the boots of the trampling warriors and all the garments rolled in blood shall be burned as fuel for the fire. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time onward and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. A similar account setting for this age of hope is found in the ancient Near East. Quite a bit of the Old Testament has a lot of ancient Near Eastern mythic influence in it. There's an Akkadian myth entitled Descent of Ishtar to the Netherworld. And in this myth, the goddess Ishtar is detained in the realm of the dead, but eventually returns to the land of the living. In the land of no return, the house is dark, and they're on the road. There's no way back. The house is bereft of light. There's dust, there's clay, their food is gone. They see no light. They're living in darkness. There's dust on the door and dust on the bolt, and Ishtar cries out to the gatekeeper, who then makes an appeal to the queen. The queen orders the gatekeeper to open the gate and treat her according to the, quote, ancient rules, where she would be stripped of her crown, her clothing, her jewelry, her ornamentation, her birthstones, her bracelets, all symbols of pride. Soon the queen would face the 60 miseries, each of which resemble the curses found in Deuteronomy chapter number 28. Eventually, Ishtar would be sprinkled with the water of life. Everything that was previously taken from Ishtar would be restored, but it would cost a ransom price. And this ransom price in the language that we read about this morning, it is reminiscent of the language and the symbolism in Isaiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, which provides us the context for what we're looking at this morning. In Isaiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, the prophet names the prophetess son Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. Can you imagine having that as a name? It means speedy spoil, hasty plunder. And this was part of Isaiah's rhetorical strategy to discourage Judah from just submitting to King Ahaz of Assyria as the price of their safety. And just as the items symbolizing wealth and pride were removed from Ishtar in judgment, the wealth and the spoil of Samaria would be carried away before the king of Assyria. The people that Isaiah was addressing here, they rejected the gently flowing waters. They would now experience the strong, abundant waters of the Euphrates. Sennacherib's invasion, like a bird of prey, overwhelmed the cities of Judah. Everything seemed lost, but Isaiah says in Isaiah 8:8, but Emmanuel. God is with us. Hope is in view. Light springs forth in the dark. A hero is going to be born who will bring justice and righteousness and peace. 2 Kings chapter 15 through chapter 20 provide us the biblical references leading up to the prophets dealing with King Hezekiah of Judah. Israel and Judah were engaged in all the abominable practices of the nations whom the Lord had driven out from before the sons of Israel. Israel had been taken captive into Assyria because they had, quote, sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up from the land of Egypt under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and they feared other gods. And the Lord was warning them Through the prophets and through the seers, they were instructed to repent and turn from their evil ways and keep the law, but they, quote, rejected his statutes and his covenant which he made with their fathers. The good news of the story, however, is that even though the earth is filled with distress and darkness, a royal son is born. The God hero appears on the scene. This hero establishes peace, and he upholds the throne of David with justice and righteousness. The light and the peace and the righteousness and the justice of this prince is going to be in sharp contrast with the darkness of the reign of King Ahaz. And so when we come to Isaiah chapter 9, it is a continuation of the prophecy of chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 1, a promise is made to those who are in gloom and in anguish that it was going to end. Light and peace are brought to God's people. All of the gloom spoken of in Isaiah chapter 9 verse 1, it's used figuratively. It represents the stress and the anxieties of daily life, all of the confusion and the harm that's experienced while living in darkness under the hands of an oppressor. And suddenly, light that breaks forth in this gloom suggests that there's a time of stability. Darkness is overcome. Darkness is exposed. And now those who are in the light, they know where they're going. Their steps are certain. The light exposes everything that has been kept in the dark. And the light becomes a menace to those oppressive forces who used the darkness to their advantage. Isaiah chapter 9, verses 2 through 5, which we looked at here just a moment ago, those who walk in darkness, they see a great light. Those living in the dark will have the light shine on them. Gladness is increased. The enemy is vanquished. The darkness is not a hiding place from God. And to ensure that there's no end of peace, the prophet says, every boot of the trampling warrior and their garments rolled in blood, it's all going to be balled up and used as fuel for the fire. God is completely vanquishing the enemy. And then we have that beautiful promise, Isaiah 9, 6 and 7. This is all proleptic language. In other words, the prophet is speaking about something that is going to happen as if it has already occurred. For unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given. And the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. This child that is born is a wonder, an incomprehensible mystery. The Son would be the counselor, advising people how to navigate through the dark times. The Son would be God's mighty warrior, his hero raised up to skillfully deliver the people. The significance of the title Mighty God is important because its later use describes God himself in Isaiah chapter 10, verse number 21, so that we might understand that the Son is identified with God as no other person had ever been. No other person had God's name. The Son is called the Everlasting Father. This is a title never given to any other human ruler except for the one promised to come through the Davidic line. This is all in stark contrast to the wicked, oppressive kings that came before and ruled in darkness. This king is going to establish righteousness and peace. This king is the Prince of Peace, whose authority and government continues to increase. And even though Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 through 7 meant something historically in its context to the people whom the prophecy was addressed, all of the gospel writers point back to this prophecy made anywhere between 740 and 700 BC and applying it to Jesus Christ as the ultimate fulfillment. The Son to be born is an allusion to Jesus Christ. He's the one that Matthew said was Emmanuel, God with us. And we might look at the world as we live in it today. Metaphorically, things are dark. People are in anguish, stumbling around with uncertainty. There's darkness, there's chaos that threatens existence. And this light, this time of year, it just seems to break through all of the darkness, and it does so in the person of Jesus Christ, who declared, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Through the person of the Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of David, Yahweh, God fulfills the Davidic promise of Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7. Jesus is the God hero who came to save his people from the darkness of sin. And just as God was with them in their gloom and mire of Isaiah's day, we can trust that God is with us in and through the person of Jesus Christ, who is the guarantee of the outcome of righteousness, justice, and peace. The promise of a son who would be born, whose name would be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. This is an account of God coming to the people who are living in gloom, living in dark, miserable, stressed, anxious, and suffering times. Ian McPherson told the story of an ancient form of torture. It was called the strappado. Consisted of laying a victim on their back, and their arms and their legs would be stretched out and attached to horses. Then the horses would be furiously whipped so that they would race off in different directions, and part of the victim would be in this part of the world, and part of the victim would be in that part of the world. For the time being, we're kind of like that victim in a sense. P.T. Forsyth said that we are at the crisis of two worlds. The French priest and philosopher Lamennais asked and then answered his own question. He asked, "Do you know why man is the most suffering of creatures? It's because he stands with 1 foot in the finite and 1 foot in the infinite, and he's torn asunder, not by horses, but by two worlds." But God comes to us in our gloom and misery, not apart from it. There are some things in life which you do not have to seek. We don't have to seek the sun. It comes to us every morning. It's there waiting for us when we wake up. We don't have to seek the air we breathe. It comes to us. God comes to us in our darkness, in our misery, in our stress, in our anxiety, in our confusion. God came to Adam in the nakedness of his shame. God came to Abram in the barrenness of Sarai's womb. When Moses first met God, it was in the howling desert, in solitude. God met Moses in the desolation of the desert in a voice that came from a burning bush. And God said, "The place where your feet are standing right now is holy ground." And it was a desert, not a temple, not a sanctuary. It was in a howling desert and desolation. God spoke to Job from the whirlwind. And when the psalmist declared in Psalm 139, "Even if I make my bed in hell, you are there, leading me with your hand." God is present. God met Daniel in the lion's den. He met Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. And God comes to us today in the most vulnerable, fragile of all living things. A babe wrapped in swaddling clothes and laying in a manger, and his name is Jesus. He is Emmanuel, God with us. God illumines the darkness of our human existence in the person of Jesus, who is the light of the world. And in the end, after all, it's Jesus who wipes every tear from our eye and promises that there will be no more sorrow. There'll be no more death. For the former things have passed, and behold, I am making all things new. It is the incarnation that transforms the stress and the anxiety and the gloom of human existence. I want to close with a prayer from Walter Brueggemann. This day we dazzle at your glory in the midst of our long night. Move in your glory this day in the midst of our many nights. Bring us to your day, to your new day, your third day.